and ask yourself, like, would that version of me be proud of who I am today? And the answer is yes, then you're doing something good.
Amazing. That's a very great way of explaining it, because if I see myself 5 years back when I started my company Strugbits, I even still discuss it with my partners that, hey guys, have you ever thought that if I would have told you guys that after 5 years we would have been here, what would you all say? And they were like, we would have said, come on, that's not possible. And we just did it. So it's hello everybody. Today I had the opportunity to speak with Gabrielle Banville, the artistic force behind Half Twin Theatre. She has taken audience by storm with her innovative, emotionally charged productions. From exploring the intricacies of womanhood to amplifying the voices of the forgotten. Her work inspires, challenges, and resonates deeply. Gabrielle, welcome to the show and thanks for joining in with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having
How
me.
are you, Gabrielle?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. It's almost 9:50 p.m. over here. What time is it over there?
It's about 11:50 a.m. for me.
Okay, it's you are an early waker or what?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I even on my days off, I like to wake up at like 7:30
Uh-huh.
because I feel like I'm most productive in the morning, and especially being in Canada and it being winter or starting to be winter, it gets dark at 4 o'clock. And so I try to optimize my daytime, literally my sunshine, as much as I can.
Amazing, amazing. Unfortunately, I cannot do that because when I'm not traveling, I'm usually here in Pakistan. My main workforce is here in Pakistan, and I have to deal with my all clients, like at the other side of the earth, and I have to stay up for them. So I don't even remember when was the last time I woke up early. So I usually wake up around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., which is very unhealthy, I know.
Okay.
And and I sleep at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m.
Oh, okay. I mean, at least you're getting some sleep.
Yes, of course. But I heard somewhere that the sleep which you get at night, that's is more beneficial one as compared to no matter how much you sleep in the morning.
Yeah, I think it also depends on like the length of sleep that you have and when you start it as well. Like my partner falls asleep usually at 1 a.m. and wakes up at 11 a.m. as well. But one time we fell asleep at 9 p.m. and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I've never slept so well in my life." I was like, "Welcome to nighttime, where people usually sleep."
Exactly. All right. Let's move towards you actually, and let's start with I want to know what sparked your passion for the arts.
Oh, it was definitely when I was a kid, for sure. I have always been a performer and I've always been an artist. My mom always made this joke that I'd either become a dancer or a film director because my sister and we would borrow my parents' video recorder,
Mm-hmm.
those camcorders with like the screens that would open up, and we would literally film movies using our stuffed animals.
Okay.
And so seeing how that became an opportunity to connect with people while also having the time of my life, I was like, I think this is my path. I have to keep following it.
Amazing. It's so interesting, and I want to know that you told me that your sister works in government, and you like she likes arts as well.
She does, yeah. So in high school, we both did the theater program that was
Mm-hmm.
available. She was always loved
Mm-hmm.
performance, as did I.
Mm-hmm.
But she also most appreciated the creation aspect. So writing stories, developing them, maybe directing
Mm-hmm.
them. And our passion for the arts and the way we pursued them did part when we entered university. But she's always still continued to invest her time in like watching all of the plays that I produce and that I act in. She's a very artistic person, even being in government. Like, for example, she told me the other day, like when she's writing reports that get sent off to premiers of the provinces in Canada, she has to make sure that the content that she's writing has a certain flow and that it's not just put on the page like that. She has to basically create a story in a way of the data that she's receiving so that the report that she's writing makes sense and it flows into one another. So the arts have always influenced her, even if it's not necessarily in the way that people expect.
You know, when I was a kid, I always used to think that I wish I had a twin brother or a sister, because whenever I used to see some twin people, they used to wear same clothes and stuff. So does your mom used to make you guys wear same dresses when you guys were kids?
Like, yes and no. My parents are wonderful, and they raised us knowing that we were twins, but they wanted to make sure that we were able to forge our own identities. Right. So yes, my mom would dress us up in the same clothes, but we always had different colors. So typically I ended up wearing pink or green or red, and my sister would wear yellow, blue, or purple. So even though we were sharing something, it was our own thing at the same time. And even in school or in everyday life, people sometimes have a tendency to call us the twins, just as that name. And my mom especially has always reinforced they're not the twins, they're their own people. So if you're going to refer to them, make sure that you say their names so that, you know, they can still stand out as themselves.
That's actually a very deep thing. I never thought like that. And she was a kind of, you know, your mother was kind of giving a message to everyone. Like, she's a very deep thing. When you said this, I started imagining that, yes, correct. Whenever we see some twins, we are like twins. We never think that they both have different identity. They both can have different thought process and stuff. So it should be more of individual people. So that's an interesting thing. And I know that you know English. We are speaking English, and you know French as well. Am I correct? So I want to know that how did you learn French? How did it happen? Number one, and how did it shape your storytelling approach?
So yeah, I am fully bilingual in English and in French. So my dad is French Canadian, and my mom is Canadian as well, but she is an Anglophone Canadian. So when I was born, pretty much, I learned both languages at the same time. I think my first word was even in French. And whenever we were at home, our parents made sure that the media we consumed, like movies and books, that we alternated between English and French so that we could still learn the language in an artistic way, but equally. And I only speak French to my dad, and I only speak English to my mom, which I do credit for it being the reason why I am fully bilingual today. Especially since when I was a kid, we moved around a lot as a family because of my mom's job. So sometimes we would end up at a school that was a fully English school that had no French classes, and none of my classmates were French. And so for those few years, the only way that I could express myself in French was with my dad at home. And it may sound really strict, that concept of only being able to speak French to my dad, but I actually really enjoyed it. It made it feel very special to have that connection with my parents. And even sometimes, like, my dad will maybe say an English word, and it kind of weirds me out because I'm just so not used to it, and it's been so ingrained in us. And being bilingual is such a gift as a human, but also as an artist, because it's 100% influenced the way I write and the way I perform. My favorite example to explain this is in English, we would say, I miss you. In French, we would say, tu me manques, which if you translate tu me manques back into English, it would say, you are missing from me. So you see how it already, like, it's the same thing, but there's that depth that was added in French of like, you're missing from me. You're a part of me that is away from me and I want it back. It's such like a visceral, emotional state of being that maybe the English saying of just I miss you doesn't necessarily catch. But it's so beautiful. And sometimes I will literally go into the scripts that I write, translate them in and out of English and French and see what comes up. Because it just adds another depth to my writing and it adds another depth to the characters that I'm exploring. And I can only credit this to the way that my parents raised me, which I think was the best way.
Amazing. Did your mom end up learning French as well?
Yes, she did. So she didn't know French when she met my dad, but she dedicated herself to learning it. Because at the time, my dad's parents didn't speak English super well. And so she wanted to make sure that she could communicate with them. And now she's fairly bilingual and is able to have like full-on conversations in French. My dad is fully bilingual as well. But it's so beautiful to sometimes hear them talk in their non-native language and hearing their accents come out. It's very adorable. And it's very sweet that like when they met, they wanted to learn each other's languages more fully so that they could like express themselves better with each other, which I don't know about you. I think it's pretty romantic.
Of course it is. It is very romantic. I must say that. I would like to mention here that we speak Khowar with our parents.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was reading about you and I came to know that you usually go for a non-linear storytelling. So what draws you to a non-linear storytelling?
For me, I've always been fascinated by the concept of time. In modern day society, especially, we perceive time as a linear concept, like child, adult, and then death. But in exploring memory and time together, I realized that time is more of a cyclical event than a linear one. Particularly, I noticed it when I created my very first play. It's called A Paisley Mind, and it's a bilingual solo show that I performed, in which I explore the effects of dementia on an older woman who's in a retirement home. Because my own grandmother had dementia. She passed away about 2 years ago. But for the last 6 years of her life, I experienced and I witnessed how memory affected her and how she would drop into memories unexpectedly. Like music would sometimes trigger a memory that came from the depths of her past that we had never heard of. Other times it'd be out of the blue. Nothing would be a trigger, but something would pop up in her mind and you could see it in her face that she was experiencing a memory of hers very vividly and very fully.
I can so relate with it.
Yeah, like it was very sad to witness her memory fading like that, but in a way it was also beautiful to see how so many of the memories that she had were good memories and that they still imbued her with joy. And so I would experiment with this concept of time and memory by slipping in and out of memory and present reality quickly or slowly. And I would physically change as well. So in the present, I would be playing this 85-year-old woman, but then I'd quickly slide into a memory of when she was 14 and then back to the present. And then maybe the next memory was when she's about to get married and then back, and then the next memory is when she's like 60. I would physically change my body, my voice especially, to live in these memories and live them fully. And that's what fascinated me about this play and how time is cyclical, because it always brings you back to things that have happened to you, and it brings you back to those feelings that still live on and exist in your own life. And so from that play, I was like, I think I need to keep experimenting with this because it's such a fascinating storytelling tool, especially in a theatrical medium, to explore time and how it passes. It's not done super often, and I do think I took a big challenge to have that be a sort of theme or focus of mine in my work. But so far, people have really resonated with it, especially for A Paisley Mind. I've had people from all different age groups tell me how seeing the show made them understand what it might have been like for their parent or sibling or grandparent, like what they went through. And it helped them understand how visceral dementia can be and how it can affect you. So that just made me push myself even further to keep working on that, keep exploring that. Because clearly I'm not the only person who believes that time lives in and out of our life, like weaves in and out. So I got to keep exploring it.
Okay, so how has your personal experience shaped your portrayal of womanhood?
I think I've experienced a lot of hardship, as we all do. But especially as a woman, I've experienced hardships that have fundamentally changed who I am. Whether though it was a very traumatic event that's happened to me, or moving away and having to say goodbye to my friends, or even, realizing that you're no longer friends with someone. That has changed a lot of who I am and how I perceive the world. In those realizations, I realized that especially as women, we experience tiny abandonments like sparkled through our life. And they can be a little bit bigger, they can be a little bit smaller, but that's something that we hold with us constantly. Whether it's being abandoned by living in a patriarchal society and not having our rights upholded, or even being abandoned by your own husband, your own partner, your siblings. I related to that a lot. And I also realized that I wasn't seeing that as often as I would like on stage or even in the digital arts. So I wanted to take those pieces of myself, of abandonments that maybe weren't talked about, and put them out on stage. Because I knew that I wasn't the only one experiencing it. Like, I have had plenty of my friends who've had a best friend and then they were no longer best friends, but they didn't know how to talk about how hard it is to lose someone like that. Like, how to grieve someone who's still alive. And sometimes those friendship breakups happen because of, you're both women and you're pitted against each other. Or a guy gets involved or a romantic partner gets involved and then things fall apart. Those happen so often and yet they're not as touched on. And so I wanted to not only relate my own experiences to what I was creating in my art, but leave space open for other women to see these shows and recognize the abandonment that was on stage, and then having resonate within them as well, and also validate their own experiences so that they felt heard.
Amazing. As we were speaking, I remember you told me that your mother is from Air Force.
Yes.
And maybe when you mentioned that, sometimes you have to leave your friends and stuff. So you must have left here a lot of friends when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah. I definitely, moving around because of my mom's job working in the Canadian Air Force, definitely had a part of, or a role in feeling that sense of abandonment. And it wasn't anybody's fault. That happens. You gotta move and you maybe never see people again. Or you have to say goodbye and you don't know when you're gonna see people again. That definitely shaped who I am in more ways than one. Like, being able to move around a lot, it made me really easy to be friends with. And it made me able to like talk to people and get to know people, and it was a natural thing for me. But even to this day, I feel that wound sometimes. Like when I have a friend who's deciding to move away, it like I feel that, oh my gosh, things are changing, people are moving away, I'm never going to see them again. So that's like, it's really wild how like things that may seem so small in childhood can still stick with you for so long.
Amazing. That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about a bit about your theater. That I was reading that you usually focus on movement-based theater, right? So I want to know that why is movement-based theater significant to your creative process?
Ooh, it's so significant. It's like wild. Um, because words mean a lot, but the way that the person says it and moves because
Mm-hmm.
of it also means a lot. Like, sometimes if you're talking to someone and they're saying like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, I agree for sure," but their body, they have like their crossed arms, or they're pushed back, or they're
Mm-hmm.
breathing differently, and you can
Mm-hmm.
just feel it on a physical level that what they're saying is not equivalent to how they're actually feeling. So even
Correct.
when I'm writing a script or doing theater, I go back all the time and I'm like, so they're saying this. This is this character's
Mm-hmm.
line, but what are they doing physically? Like, where are they in the space when they're saying this line
Mm-hmm.
in relation
Mm-hmm.
to other characters, in relation to certain objects? Because that can have a
Mm-hmm.
huge influence in how those lines are received. And I love even seeing pieces of theater where there's no dialogue. It's almost like theatrical and dance pieces because
Mm-hmm.
they move you just as much and sometimes even more than theater that has dialogue, because they can only rely on their physical being. And so they have to work extra hard to express what they want to do
Press.
in just a physical way. And that's why, as an actor, I believe that you got to start in theater or do some theatrical training before you move on to like film and TV. Because film and TV, you got your square or your shot from
Correct.
here to here, and you work that face and you work the way you talk, and that's usually what they'll take. But on theater, everyone sees every single part of you. And so you have to imbue your entire self into your stage presence, into what you're doing. And so once you could do that, you can manipulate it into more nuanced
Correct.
performances. But once you have that tool, you'll never act the same. And that's how it felt like for me when I did my approaches in a more physical way, movement based way, even with certain
Mm-hmm.
theatrical concepts that are rooted in physical theater, but that you can
Mm-hmm.
use in, working dialogue or working on your lines. So that's why so much of what I do, like I rely on the way that we move and the way that we breathe. Because intrinsically as humans, we will notice that first before we notice what people are saying. And honestly, that aspect of risk and not knowing what's coming next is it fuels a performance in a way that sometimes acting for film can't. Like, yeah, like you said, you can't cut. If you screw up, you got to keep going. And if you do screw up, you got to use that, maybe that nervous energy or frustration to maybe fuel your performance. And it forces you to commit, just to commit to the now and to what you're doing in this moment, and just go for it. There's no filters. There's no self-editing. You just got to be you and commit. And that's honestly so much more fun.
Amazing. Something came in my mind regarding your French language. If I give you a line, can you say it in French?
Sure.
Okay, I want to know how. I want to know how it sounds. Okay, you have to say Strugbits is the best company I worked with in French.
So I would say, in French, I would say, la compagnie Strugbits est l'une des compagnies que que j'ai travaillé avec ou que j'ai aimé le plus avec leur travail. You could also say it in like, Strugbits c'est la meilleure compagnie avec qui j'ai travaillé. Um, it's interesting because French has such like formality and informality. So the two ways that I said it,
The first one was the formal, I
it's like
believe.
the informal and the first one was a little bit more like chatty, like oh j'ai travaillé avec Strugbits et j'ai beaucoup aimé travailler avec eux. Like oh I worked with Strugbits and I really liked working with them.
Okay.
Versus saying Strugbits c'est la compagnie avec qui j'ai aimé travailler le plus. That one would be Strugbits is the company with which I loved working with the most.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Halfton Theatre and what's your vision for Halfton Theatre in the next, we can say, 5 years?
Oh, I want Half Twin Theater to be like a beacon of creation and connection, especially in the Montreal community. And like already we've had such great crowds, amazing crowds, younger and older, who've been really eager to see what we've been creating, who are excited constantly to see what our next production will be. And these same audiences have come back to our shows and have pulled through and supported us financially or even just spreading the word on social media. So it's been really heartwarming to see the effect that we've had. In the next 5 years, I would love Halfton Theatre to be a more established independent theater company in a manner where we're able to have our own productions outside of a festival context.
Okay.
I would love the opportunity to collaborate with a professional theater company and maybe do a co-production with them. Whether that would be in Montreal, but even in another part of Canada, that would be wonderful because I would love our stories to reach different parts of the country. And, you know, for Half Twin Theater, like already with even my other collaborators, they're so committed and passionate about what we do that I want to keep that going and I want our team to grow so that eventually, you know, we can put up more than one production a year. Maybe there's two. Maybe there's one in Montreal and there's one happening in Toronto.
Okay.
Maybe one's in English and one's in French. I want to be able to reach a lot of people and to grow it. Personally, for me, I want to be able to be an artist on a more full-time basis, to continue my theater, my playwriting, performance, both in theater and in digital media, and in English and in French. Because I feel this awesome momentum that I've created with Half Twin Theater. All it's done so far is create more opportunities for me going forward. And I can feel it bringing me places that I never would have expected. And it's already bringing me places that I'm blown away by. For example, I was selected to be part of a professional staged reading series in the spring.
All right.
That's going to be put up at the Centaur Theatre.
Exciting.
And Centaur Theatre is one of the biggest theaters in Montreal.
Okay.
So I'm able, for these next few months, I'm able to workshop the play and keep working on it and have professional actors perform it and have a director direct it and have it performed in front of a new audience in a professional theater like in Montreal, which is mind-blowing to me. Like I've been to that theater as an audience member for years, ever since I've lived in Montreal, and now I get to have my own work be on that stage. And it's all because of the work that me and my collaborators have done on Half Twin Theater. It's clearly had such an impact, and it clearly resonates with people that it's just wonderful. And I think if I were to talk to like Gabby from like 5 or 6 years ago and tell her what I've done so far, I think she wouldn't believe me at first, and she also would be blown away at the same time. Which, even not just as an artist, but as a person, if you're able to look back on yourself 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and ask yourself, like, would that version of me be proud of who I am today? And the answer is yes, then you're doing something good.
Amazing. That's a very great way of explaining it, because if I see myself 5 years back when I started my company Strugbits, I even still discuss it with my partners that, hey guys, have you ever thought that if I would have told you guys that after 5 years we would have been here, what would you all say? And they were like, we would have said, come on, that's not possible. And we just did it. So it's amazing way to see what we have accomplished, and it's an amazing way to see that if you yourself is at the right track or not, at the right direction or not. So amazing. It's very happy to see you that you're already being proud of yourself. So amazing. Um, there's one more question I have, and that is, do you have a dream role or project you would love to tackle?
Yeah, I think I would love one day to play a classic role.
Okay.
I'd love to play Ophelia in Hamlet.
Okay. Interesting.
'Cause she's a very interesting character. Yeah. Typically on stages for Hamlet, Ophelia is portrayed as this young, naive, frail girlfriend of Hamlet who eventually is betrayed by Hamlet and the people around her. And her father dies. And so there's the most iconic scene for Ophelia is when she walks into court and she's gone a little crazy and she's floaty and like she doesn't know what's going on, but she's handing out these flowers. She's gone a little bit into lunacy. But I've reflected a lot about Ophelia as a character and thought about what's happened to her. So she'd been manipulated by her family. Her partner like broke up with her at random and treated her very poorly. And then her father passed away. Of course, grief can express itself in so many different ways. But if those things were to happen to me, I would be very angry. And I wouldn't be frail about it anymore. I would be very steadfast and very rooted in my anger and my grief. And in that same vein, because Ophelia usually is portrayed as this like weaker and frailer woman, people think that she's weak and frail. But I argue that that's the opposite. She's strong because she was betrayed by the men in her life, and yet she still stood in that court and told them all the truth and
Correct.
stood up for what she believed in. She stood in her anger, and that's what I want to try with Ophelia if I ever get the chance, is to be an Ophelia that is really angry and that has never shown this grief and anger before to the court. And that, yes, maybe before she was this kind and gentle person, but when she's pushed too far, this is what happens. This is the reality of what happens when a woman is betrayed by the people who are supposed to protect her. I think that'd be so much fun.
That's a very great advice. Thank you very much, Gabrielle, for sharing your journey, vision, and your passion with us today. Talking about this jet, wearing it from your closet and going out, I was thinking about Tony Stark all the time.
I mean, and a lot of people say that when they meet me, they come into the shop and I show them the stuff and they're like, "You're Tony Stark." I'm like, no, no, no. So I'm married.